Thank you all for joining and welcome to this session on real-time water data from satellites to achieve faster resilience. This session was convened by FAO and partners of the project Water Productivity Improvements in Practice, or WaterPIP. I'm Livia Pfizer. I'm a Land and Water Officer in the Land and Water Division in FAO. And before going into the content of the session, I'd like to remind you that this session is being recorded and it will be made available on the channel of the World Water Week website. And for your questions, please use the chat box that is available on the Pathable page through which you joined this session. There's a chat box for that. And if you experience technical problems, also please use that chat. So with that, I'd like to say just a few words on this session before giving the floor to our speakers. We have a tight schedule, so we'll try to go through it on time. So in this session, wherever you are, we will be sharing experiences and discussing the role of Earth observation for improved monitoring of freshwater resources and their use, particularly in agriculture. Because FAO and partners that you see in this session have been joining forces since many years now for developing open access products to monitor and from there improve water productivity in agriculture. And as a matter of fact, this session is combining examples and experiences through a number of projects. The first one is the FAO Vapor project that is funded by the government of the Netherlands, and that aimed at developing an open access database of remote sensing information to monitor water productivity that currently focuses on Africa and the Near East. And this project is now entering its second phase until 2025. So we are now in a moment where we focus on applications in a growing number of countries. In addition to that, we had an active collaboration with the Asian Development Bank to publish the water accounting dataset that they have been, a water productivity dataset they've been producing to monitor their projects. And we published them in a dedicated geospatial portal that is part of the FAO Aquastat information system. And lastly, as I mentioned, we have the Water Productivity Improvement in Practice project, also known as WaterPIP, that uses vapor data in various locations for informed decision-making in agriculture, often in collaboration with local private sector and academia. And you can find references to what I've been saying through these projects and websites in the chat box directly on the Pathable page. With that, I would like now to move to our speakers. The first one is Dr. Rao, the director of the Advanced Center for Integrated Water Resources Management. And Dr. Rao will discuss the role of satellite data for water accounting in Karnataka, in India, in the framework of ADP project. And I'd like to mention that the data for this water accounting are now available on the, as I was mentioned, on the FAO water accounting portal. So please, Dr. Rao, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Let me share my text. Yeah, is the screen visible?
Yes, all clear. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. As you are all aware, data is a big challenge to get, especially in water sector and also in developing countries, especially. It's very expensive to collect vast amount of data. So in this kind of a scenario for better decision making and policy direction development, satellite data has become very handy nowadays. And in the last couple of decades, there has been many data parameters which are collected by the satellites and available in the open domain. So fortunately, there are a lot of researchers who has developed methodologies to use the data, analyze the data, and make it more simplified tools. So we have partnered with ADB support and IHE expertise to try out the use of satellite data in assessing the water accounts for Karnataka in Karnataka subbasins. So we have done it as a pilot first in one of the subbasins called Tungabhadra subbasin, part of the larger Krishna basin. I will show you the maps. And then we also tried recently to do with 3 other subbasins. So to give a picture, this is the map of India, and the pink one is the Krishna or larger Krishna basin, and these are the state boundaries. And this is the Krishna basin, and this dotted line is the Karnataka state. So large part of the Krishna basin falls into the Karnataka state. So we have an upper state and also the lower riparian states. So these are the parts of the subbasins within Krishna in Karnataka. So most of these are now covered. Only the top one and the bottom one, the small ones, are to be done, and that will make us cover the entire Krishna basin. So this is the Karnataka state, and these are the subbasin, various river basins. So water accounting basically can be used at irrigation scheme level or at a basin level, or in our case, we are using it as a sub-basin level because of the larger geographical area, and also at country scale. So we will also be looking at doing it at the state level, because of state itself is quite large on the size, similar to the size of European country. So what does water accounting support? It will give an enabling data for informed decision making for water management. To be more simple, how much water is available and how much is used and who is using it, which sector is using it, and what is the performance of the entire sub-basin things. And if you look at the past years data, then we can also know the current trends and whether we are in a sustainable position or not. So both the demand versus supply by various sectors can be separated out using these water accounts. And also the key elements are the ET, evapotranspiration data, and the consumptive and non-consumptive use. So the data sets which are available now in a much more organized fashion are rainfall, precipitation, evapotranspiration, soil moisture, and water levels in some cases, in the groundwater changes in some of the GRACE satellite data, and also the biomass kind of thing. And most of these are available in the open database. So these are the sets of data sets which we accessed, and the satellites from where we used for the study in Karnataka. So we first used the remote sensing satellite data, then also the hydrological model thing, and also we tried to club the ground measurements, which our government departments does it here in the state, and then the results are tabulated in the form of sheets and statistical tables, and also in maps. And the whole coding is done by using Python. So these are the 6 different kinds of result sheets that will come. So one is gives the overview of the entire basin. Here we have done it for the basin level, and then evapotranspiration accounts, then the agricultural overview, the utilized flows, the surface water, and the groundwater separation tool. So in Karnataka, this is I will now share with the latest ones which we did for the 3 subbasins, which are called Middle Krishna and Ghataprabha and Malaprabha subbasins. All these 3 subbasins are one next to each other and in the northern part of Karnataka, and they are in the middle part of the larger Krishna basin. So these are all the inflows that come from various subbasins, and then there are some outflows also going from one subbasin to another subbasin. So using the monthly average precipitation from the CHIPS data for the 12 years from 2007 to 2019, and the stations, about 139 ground stations where data is collected by the department, the precipitation data is validated. Then the usage by agriculture or the rainfed forest or the irrigated crops by different category of the things is calculated using the land use land cover map prepared by the National Remote Sensing Center of India. And this we have done it for the year of 2017-18. So about 16.5% cultivated area is there from increase is there from 2010 to 2018. And there are 4 categories, as you all know: the protected land use, utilized land use, and modified land use and managed water use. And modified land use is where the agriculture, irrigation and all actually happens. And this is the evapotranspiration data, which will give the spatial distribution of the water consumption. And this is our, again, access from the SSE BOP open access product. So here it shows larger areas is showing in orange, which is 100 to 300 millimeter per year, but this is very low because rainfall is 600 millimeters. So this we will be checking for more validation with the ground data and kind of things. So using the remote sensing, yearly water balances, and also using the in situ measurements which are done by the department here for a longer period, historical period, the whole water balance is refined, and this is calculated for a period of 10 years. And for one particular watershed, which actually carries a large number of volumes of inflows, a more in-depth analysis is done because there is also the flow data, stream flow data available at one station called Tenthini. There is no significant long-term trend in storage change in this particular watershed. If you see the water yields in all the three sub-basins, the blue things is where the precipitation is greater than the evapotranspiration, and red is where the net consumption is precipitation is lesser than the ET. Most of the runoff for all these three sub-basins is generated from outside these sub-basins. And agriculture is the only major sector which is the consumer in this three sub-basins. The annual average water balance figures, something for the 2017-18. So the area is about 15,000 square kilometers for the Middle Krishna sub-basin. So these are the figures, how it can be separated using the water accounting sheets. I'm not going to the details of these things. So there is about 20.6 cubic kilometer of water available per year, and the utilized is only 2.1 cubic kilometer. As I said, large inflows come from the upstream, so those will be flowing away to the downstream states. During the dry weather period, there is about 4.6 cubic kilometer per year, and in the wet weather, the outflow is about 18.4 cubic kilometer per year. For another sub-basin, K4, the Gadaprava, similar figures. So about 1.7 cubic kilometer is available per year in the year 2017, and whereas utilized is only 0.6 cubic kilometer per year. Whereas outflows during the dry period, drier year is about 0.3 cubic kilometer per year, and whereas when it is wet, it is about 2.3 cubic kilometer per hour. So utilization in these things is very small actually, because as I said, the mountainous regions in the upstream state yield a large flows. So those will be again left into the river to go to the downstream state, because we are also governed by the tribunal to use the water. So these are the sheets which for the period of 2010 to 2017, which categorizes how the different land use uses the water. And these sheets are very handy, especially at the policy level, to have a gross understanding or the overview in which direction we are actually leading to and how much is being used. The available water in general in these sub-basins is quite high. So for the Middle Krishna sub-basin, it is about 8 to 10 times the utilized flow. You can see this gap. Even in the very low flow period also, there is about 11 cubic kilometer per year, whereas the utilization is only about 2 to 3. Similarly, in another sub-basin, it is about 2 to 3 times the utilized flow. Especially in the drier periods, most of the water is utilized. There is also strong seasonal variability which we could found depending with the monsoon. So these are the things which will, for different sub-basins, how the total storage changes there. So there are different sheets which provide different parameters, surface water, beneficial, non-beneficial, ET, and all the things. So I'll just quickly run through this. And land use land cover map is the key for really getting the accuracy. So when we analyze this, the most of the consumption is by agriculture, that is the modified land use and monsoon climate, and there is high spatial variability of the rainfall. The upstream areas are the ones which generate most of the runoff. These results are now available in the FAO's website, Biomass. And this is very quite handy. You can now explore different options, and then you can also even look at different data. We also made available some of the data from the land. So this is the entire Krishna basin. These are the 3 sub-basins which are studied in Karnataka. So there are precipitation maps, and these are the stations actually on the ground where the data is taken to collaborate. And these are the kind of the maps you can access. And this is very handy, interactive, especially for policymakers to understand very quickly. So this is the precipitation variation from different time period. This is the actual evapotranspiration variation. And this is the precipitation minus actual evapotranspiration. So these are the results which are really helpful at the policy level decision making. And still there is a big challenge in communicating this to the users and also to the policymakers, both the engineers for the water management purposes and also the policymakers. So that's one area I think we need to still work on, how better we can communicate the messages, the results into the policy messages. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rao. I think you can now stop sharing your screen. And it was a very interesting presentation. There's already questions in the chat box that will be addressed in the question and answer session and later on. So please use the chat box to pose your questions to this presentation. And we now have, we were supposed to have an experience from Ethiopia, but there were issues, connection issues. So we'll now hear about the same experience, but with an interactive web map story that will describe a situation in 1G in a sugarcane area in Ethiopia. And this will be done by showing the data that are made available through the FAO Vapor database. And this will be done by Aline Spencer, Information Management Junior Expert in the Land and Water Division of FAO. So she will now present a dynamic story that is made on the FAO geospatial platform. So please, Aline, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Just to keep the time. Good morning, everybody. Do you hear me well?
Yes, and we see your screen very well. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, I will. There's just a tiny issue on the extent. Perfect, we are ready. Hello, my name is Aline Spencer, and I work with the Vapor team at FAO. And one of the preoccupations that even Dr. Rao talked about with is that we have often is how do we communicate the work that we do in the Vapor team and the work that our partners do with the data that we provide. And what I'm going to show you today is a data story, a dynamic web map story that showcases the work that our partners at WaterPip have done in 1G Ethiopia. And it's a story that's hosted on the FAO's Hand in Hand platform, which gathers all of the geospatial data that's created by the organization in one platform, and the user can superimpose them and analyze them together, which I think is quite exciting. And it allows for the creation of these dynamic stories by anyone, including you. And I will literally fly you through the story, like an abbreviated version of it. And I invite you to take a look at it later and to spread it around. I will share the link on the checkbox after I finish presenting. So yeah, so the story starts in this way with this view of Ethiopia, and what pops up are these yellow sugar factories. There are 9 operational sugar factories in Ethiopia, and 4 of them are in the Awash River Basin. And then we zoom onto the Awash Basin, which concentrates a lot of the economic activity of the country and suffers from issues such as seasonal water stress in the peak irrigation season, but also localized water scarcity. And these phenomena will be exacerbated with the continuous expansion of irrigated agriculture, as well as the increased occurrence of extreme weather events caused by global climate change. So there is an imperative to work on increasing the resilience of the agricultural systems in this basin. So in the next slide, we zoom into the sugar estate, and the zooming in action is actually a visual way to put emphasis on the multi-scalar dimension of water use in the sugar estate, and shows that changes that are done at the estate level, at the field level, can have repercussions on the basin as well. So we zoom further into the parts that are the focus of this data story. And the reason why sugarcane is a crop to be paid particular attention to is because it's really thirsty. And we need to make sure that as much sugarcane can be produced with every single drop of water, that there is as little wastage of this precious resource as possible. And that's when we come to the concept of water productivity. And as you know, Vapor is the FAO portal to monitor water productivity through open access of remotely sensed data. And it provides the layers to that end, and you can see it in the screen, and the user is able to interact with them, and we can even change the dates. Yes, so water productivity is the ratio of biomass production and water consumption, both layers that are provided on the Vapor portal. And here is the computed water productivity average between 2014 and 2019, so 6 years of data. This is kind of, this is the product of computing those layers that are available on the portal. And part of the work that has been carried by our water peak partners has been to identify the best performing areas in the scheme, right? And to compute what we call like attainable productivities, which constitute locally relevant and realistic targets for the scheme. And we can see them here, and really this platform allows the user to be able to interact and look at the areas more closely. And then we can see that the lower part of the scheme really has many of these best performing areas. And they are computed as the 95th percentile of water productivities and land productivity. And if we focus on land productivity, the goal is to close the gap, really. That means to work towards making the less well-performing areas attain the target productivity, the target productivities, sorry, my zooming is a bit crazy. So the goal is to move these areas into the productivities that are being attained by the best performing areas, right? And if the gap is closed, as much as 243,000 tons of sugarcane more could be produced in the scheme every year, which is quite considerable. And the fact that we can calculate that can really assist with planning. And if this productivity gap is closed, our partners estimate that the water consumption would increase by as much as 22.3 million meter cubes of water, which is significant. But as you will be able to see in the report when it's out, it is less than if new fields were created to grow more sugarcane. So the intensification of production is better on our water resources than just the expansion of the land. So yeah, in sum, we can see that making decisions to manage water resources at different scales is quite information intensive, and Vapor data can help by providing freely available data in a wide range of spatial and temporal resolutions. It can help breach this data gap that exists in a lot of areas that actually need it most. So yeah, open access remote sensing data like the one provided on the portal can help support more resilient agricultural systems where water is used according to needs and inefficiencies can be diagnosed and mended. So yeah, this was the data story. I will share it with you on the chat so you can look at it. It's there's a lot more to it than what I was able to say in this presentation. And apologies for looking at the other screen, like I was, I'm working on two screens, so if I'm not looking at you, that's what's happening. But thank you for your attention, and yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much, Ali. That was very interesting for our participants. And I also like to remind you again that you can pose questions to Aline in the chat box and of the Patable portal, and they will be addressed during the Q&A. So this was a very good summary of both outputs of both the WaterPIP project and the FAO Vapor database and the way we publish the data on the portal. So I think now we can move to our next and last presentation before the Q&A session. And the presentation will be delivered by Ronak Mohammed, remote sensing and GIS researcher at the Hydraulic Research Center in Wad Medani in Sudan. And that is one of the 10 countries where Vapor is implementing field activities, particularly during its second phase. It started already in the first phase more than a year ago, but now it will move on to its second phase. So she will present an overview of what has been done until now and what we can think of for the future. So thank you very much. I see that your presentation is already on. We can see it very well. So Ronak, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ronak Mohammed, a researcher from Hydraulic Research Center, Ministry of Irrigation and Water Resource, Sudan. The presentation will be about using of remote sensing and open access database for irrigation management in Sudan. The content of this presentation is overview about what has been done and introduction about the project and case study and project activities and output and results. This presentation will address the using of remote sensing for a huge infrastructure system like Jazeera irrigation scheme, which has a very large area, about 0.9 million hectares, and the scheme is suffering from water management. And this is the example on how to use open access remotely sensing data and WAPOR database to improve water productivity and water management. The main objective of this project is to enhance local capacity and introduce tangible water productivity improvement measures, including supportive practical policy. The project is funded by Food and Agricultural Organization, implemented by Hydraulic Research Center. The partners of this project is FAO and Ministry of Irrigation and Water Resource, Agricultural Research Corporation, and Jazeera Irrigation Scheme. The duration of the project is more than 1 year, and the study area is Jazeera Irrigation Scheme, which has a very large area, as I say. The main activities of the project is data collection, capacity building, water productivity, and productivity analysis. The objective of data collection activity is to conduct or to collect sample for main crop in Jazeera irrigation scheme for summer and winter season to validate level 3 WAPOR data at scheme level. As you can see here, the crop that we are collected on winter season and the crop that we are collected for the summer season. One of the goals of this project is building local capacity. So we have carried out 2 types of training. The first one is TOT, and then those TOTs train 2 patches. Each patches have more than 20 participants from different institutes. The objective of this capacity building is multidisciplinary interaction between different fields, familiarity with the Jazeera irrigation scheme, familiarity with the WAPOR portal, and to conduct water productivity analysis. The third activities is water productivity and productivity analysis. We conduct 2 types of analysis, WAPOR data analysis and field data analysis. The overall objective of this analysis is to assess the current level of productivity and yield gap on the main or major crop in Jazeera irrigation scheme, wheat, sorghum, and groundnut, and to analyze the impact of the main irrigation and farming related factor on productivity and yield gap, and to determine the degree of reliability of WAPOR in analyzing productivity and yield gap, and recommend measures that can improve productivity and narrow yield gap. On WAPOR data analysis, we conduct WAPOR productivity analysis for winter season 2020. Here the example for wheat crop. When we look at the actual evapotranspiration map, we can see this area have a high water consumption more than this area and this area. And when we look on the biomass map, we can see this area have a high production or a high biomass production more than this area and this area. So from water productivity map, we can see the water productivity here on this area on the south part of the scheme is very low compared with on this, even those division or this part consume more water. So we need to know what's happened on this area. And on the summary of irrigation performance indicator for the same crop and the same season at irrigation block level, you can see here from adequacy map those area or those division on the south part of the scheme have a high quantity of water, high quantity of water more than this area and this area. And when we look on the equity map, we can see this division on the west part has ability to provide fair distribution of water more than this area on the south part of the scheme. And when we look on the beneficial fraction map, we can see that the most of water here on this division is consumed for biomass to produce biomass production, and most of the water here is consumed as evaporation. So also we need to know what is the problem or what's happened here. And when we look on this graph, it is comparison between 2020 and 2021. We can see the general trend of the adequacy. We can see the ability of the system to reach target deliveries water to the user is poor at division level. So the system haven't ability to reach targeted deliveries water to the users. And when we look on the equity chart, we can see that from the general trend, the irrigation system has a fair ability to provide fair distribution of water at division level. And when we look on the bright spot for 2020 for wheat, we can see the location of the bright spot on the north part and the west part of the scheme. Also for 2021, the bright spot for the same location. So from when we draw the two bright spots, we can say that the same division or the same part have the same bright spot. So we need to know what's happened here on this part. So we went to the field and we conduct the field data analysis to know what is the problem. And we conduct questionnaire using COBOL toolbox to analyze the impact of the main irrigation and farming practice on productivity and yield gap, and to determine the degree of reliability of WAPOR in analyzing productivity and yield gap. The questionnaire includes many factors like irrigation, seed variety, seed preparation, and so on. As a result from the field analysis, we get the suitable practice for wheat, for sorghum, for groundnut. And related with the reliability of WAPOR in analyzing productivity, we can see here from graph, WAPOR have overestimation and underestimation value. When we look on wheat yield, the green one is yield from farmer, and the red one is WAPOR yield. WAPOR have underestimation here on high yield value, and also have underestimation here and have overestimation here, but have acceptable value on the middle value of yield. The same things on sorghum. WAPOR also have underestimation here in this area of high yield and overestimation here on low yield, but have acceptable on middle yield. The output of the project is the reports, summer and winter data collection reports, TOT report, and patches report, and 2 farmer events to aware farmers with the good agricultural practice, a compendium list of issue and possible solution to improve productivity in the irrigation scheme, policy brief, document to help decision maker to know what is the problem and what is the possible solution.
Thank you very much, Ronak. That was perfectly on time. So that helps with keeping the overall time of this session. So please use the chat box in Possible to pose questions on this study in the Gezira irrigation system. I think we can now start our Q&A session, and I'll see if Virginie is able to moderate that. Otherwise, I can do that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
sorry.
Virginie.
Sorry, thank you. I'm not even able apparently to put my camera on. I'm sorry, my Zoom is going a bit crazy and I am a bit blind. My button have disappeared. So I'm already very happy that you can hear me. I will try to moderate this session, even though this is happening. So we do have some question, and I see that Dr. Rao started to answer some directly in the chat, which is, well, some already, almost all of them, I must say. So let's go. Maybe Dr. Rao, do you want to give more detail than the one that you've provided in the chat? Maybe we can go through them for everyone to see. So we have a question that is asking whether you would involve end user on the ground through any participatory tool to triangulate and build understanding and ownership.
Yeah, actually, some questions which ask for whether the results have been used for decision making.
Yes.
But we should also understand that we are still in the development phase of this whole thing. The last few years also, along with IHE, we have been trying out various things and trying to refine the results, collaborating with the ground truthing and all. So in terms of water accounting, there was still limitations, especially in communicating the results to the appropriate decision-making level, including the water management. Whereas in case of water productivity assessments using remote sensing, definitely there has been usage of the results. We are also, we could clearly identify the low yielding areas within the same command area and the high yielding areas, and then start the discussion with the engineers, whether why it is so, whether it is about the water management or whether it is about the on-farm management. And then we also have designed some interventions as a land and water management program to further implement and improve those areas. And at the policy level too, there is a discussion with the agricultural department to change their reporting system from the per hectare basis to per unit of water. So basically from the land productivity to the water productivity. So that these kind of decisions that are going to happen using the results of this. And water accounting results, yes, it is providing a good overview, but how for actual decision making, still there is yet time, I think, and we will be hopefully be doing it soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rao. Of the other question that you've already answered, is there any addition that you would like to do?
No, thanks.
No, okay. So probably maybe we could also go to other question that we have for Ms. Mohammed. We have a question asking what is the sustainability of the project beyond the initial first year? Renoir, do you want to answer this question? Yes.
Yeah. Now FAO preparing for WAPOR phase 2. So we need to wait to do more analysis, but we focus on how we can improve our results for those study areas.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sorry, Virginie, maybe I can complement.
Yes, please.
On that. That's a very appropriate question, and I think what the work that we have been doing together with HRC and other partners in the Vapor project, so both the International Water Management Institute and the IHE Delft, is developing capacities and expertise in this case at the Hydraulic Research Center, but also other universities and also with private sector to develop capacities to use the data that is being published online, and it will be I mean the data will be there in the future. Because we are also looking, the source of the data is open access data. We are looking into partnering more also with Copernicus program to make sure that the continuation of the database is guaranteed also beyond the lifetime of the project, and all the algorithms and calculations to produce this data are also open source. So we are very aware of this and trying to build sustainability beyond the project lifetime. So thank you.
Thank you, Livia. I think you probably partly answered to another question that we had for HRC on the planning of the next study for crop water productivity for other crops, and also on water quality, but maybe Ryan wants to add something on this answer.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now we need to focus, as I say, on how to improve our results for the irrigation scheme. But we already conduct analysis for sugarcane on sugarcane company or sugarcane scheme. So this other crop, but we're planning to improve our results firstly, and then we can do more analysis for other crops.
Great, thank you very much, Ryan. That was very interesting. We also have a question for FAO, which is, I think, probably a good transition for our panel discussion. Maybe, Livia, you want to tackle that question. It's about whether there is a quantifiable estimation of how much the Vapor project has contributed to SDG target, especially under SDG 6 and SDG 2.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, thank you for the question. I think it's very hard to come with a quantifiable estimation. What we know is that vapor data is being used to in support of the indicators. That's already important starting point, particularly for target 6, but also there are examples of using it for target 2, so for monitoring the indicator. Then for reaching the target, I think it's a different story, but it can be used to monitor achievements in the target. That's what basically the vapor data can do. And together with this, in this second phase, we are now, well, the first phase of vapor was really about developing the methodology and the database to monitor achievements both at SDG level, but also at different levels. And now the focus of the second phase is more about developing applications and translating this information into water productivity improvements. And that's also the goal of the water PIP project. So I think it's now difficult to come up with quantifiable estimation of how much it contributed to the target, but it's indeed a very nice research question, and we can definitely look at try to quantify it, at least in the countries we work with in this space. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we can, given the time, we can now start our panel discussion. Maybe, Livia, if you're kind enough to put up a slide with the question, which I was supposed to do, but cannot manage with my Zoom, strange Zoom today. We have for panel session 3, panelists who have kindly accepted to answer our question. We have Dr. Malus Pool, who is an associate professor at IHE Delft. Dr. Lisa Maria Rebello, who is a principal researcher at HIMI, and Dr. Jelle Bekma, a senior water resource specialist at ADB. So thank you, the three of you, to have accepted this discussion. And thank you to collaborate with FAO and the Vapor project at different levels. So we now have those 4 questions that have been put up, which I will read once, and I will ask our 3 panelists to answer the question that they want to answer or have answer to contribute to, let's say. So our 4 questions are: what type of action would now be needed to turn these opportunities that we've just seen today, like these remote sensing opportunities, to turn these opportunities into solutions? Is the water productivity monitoring implemented in the sugarcane example in Ethiopia that we've seen through Aline's story, for example, is valid for other type of farming system? What type of vapor application could you imagine at country level? And a last one, which is how vapor data can be used for water accounting. We partly seen already answer to that last question through Dr. Rao, but you might want to add more. So maybe to be able to see you, we'll put those questions down, but we will write them down in the chat so that the attendee can still have them, and you can also still have them. But we can now maybe ask the panelists to answer the question that are that they want to answer, or if they have any comment also to the previous presentation, obviously. Maybe we can start with Marloes. Marloes, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you very much, and very nice presentations. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I think I would like to maybe respond to the question on the on the sugarcane applications, and if this kind of assessments and monitoring can be valid and useful for other farming systems. And I think the answer is definitely yes. We can see with this example for sugarcane, we can see really the value of remote sensing information to monitor water consumption in agricultural systems and also the water productivity. Yeah? The value of the vapor database is that it both measures the biomass production as well as the evaporation, the water consumption. So that combination is really unique, and yeah, it can be useful. I think there are a few challenges, of course, when we talk about other farming systems. We have sugarcane is normally grown in large fields, and with the resolution of remote sensing, it's easily captured, and we can do these analysis. So if you talk about small farmers in small fields, you find more challenges. And I think the other interesting bit that I got from the presentation from Sudan is that you need a very good crop map. But if you have that crop map, you can distinguish between different crops and compare what is happening with the different crops, how much water are they using, and it can definitely be very useful in other farming systems. So yes, I would say the answer is definitely yes.
Great, thank you very much, Marloes. Maybe Lisa, do you have some comments on the previous presentation, or do you want you have a specific question you would like to answer?
Yeah, thanks, Virginie. And maybe I'll just tackle the first question, because I think it's a really important one. You know, it's taken us what it is 5 years, I think, to get to this stage where we have the database, and we're looking now into continuing into phase 2 with another 5 years of production of the database. And the emphasis now really is on translating that into the applications and solutions. And while one of the objectives of the data is, as Livia mentioned, to monitor and improve agricultural water management and water productivity on the ground, there's a very long path to travel between providing the data and actually having an impact on the practices on the ground. And I think over the past 5 years and working in many of the different areas and the case studies that we show, we've identified 3 things that really are quite critical to enable that change. And that's really defining solutions and applications through an end-user-centered process. So it's not about necessarily the indicators we have in the database, but what do those need to be translated into to be used and understood by our end users. The second, I guess, would be then further into a co-designing process. So not just the definition, but a full process of co-design and implementations of solutions with the key end users. And then further to that, developing mechanisms to support the scaling of solutions, because really beyond the production of the database, what we're looking at is having a sustainable long-term impact. And a lot of that then is around the modalities and mechanisms to support the scaling of the applications and solutions that we've been developing over the past 2 years and over the years to come. And in parallel to all of those 3 things, which really are, I think, quite critical, is an ongoing capacity building program. So in the areas where we have the production of the database, looking not only at building capacity around understanding the concepts, because it's quite different, some of the concepts we're talking about and how we're producing them from the remote sensing data. So not just around the concepts, but also around the actual tools and capacity needed to use and access the data. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Lisa. And last but not least, maybe Jele, if you have any comment on the presentation or wants to tackle any of the 4 questions that was put up.
Thanks so much, Virginie. First of all, thanks for participating in this. I think it was really fascinating to see a lot of applications, the Ethiopia and the Sudan, and have here these discussions. I'm working for the Asian Development Bank. We've been trying to use water accounting to see what kind of room there is in developing new projects, or in where the necessity is to actually improve the water productivity and the efficiency in a basin, to make sure that we don't close the basin. So I think that's a very important use of the water accounting. Then the water productivity helps us in project preparation, and we're trying to actually develop that. We're not yet completely there, but having accessible data, we don't have them for ACI yet, but in the projects where we did work together with IMI and IHE, we do. And a number of projects we're now doing with this comparable type of information. So where we have spots with very low evapotranspiration, we know something is wrong in the system, and we can focus on actually looking what is wrong and how this can be improved. And that helps us in making more efficient projects. What we are doing as well is we have pre-project information with the ETs. How are they now, the evapotranspirations and the translated yields? And how is this going to develop over years? So that gives us an idea of the impact of the projects. That will take a few years, but we will definitely do that. So we can monitor. And I think that's another very important impact. We have many projects that we've done already. We can see what has been the effect, and therefore we can also hopefully see what can be done better in the future. Another one, we're talking here about real-time data from satellites, and I'm very excited actually about the opportunity also to use the data immediately to give, for example, advice on irrigation, and that's in a very initial stage, but there's certainly much more known than what you would know if you just look into the field from the side of the field, or if you just have a few sensors in various places, and there's always a very high soil variability. So we believe that we can do much better, and we're actually trying this out in a number of our projects. If that works, I think if you have a worldwide database on evapotranspiration and almost very regular data, you can do much better. Another application, for example, quite important at the moment in Afghanistan, is to look into the drought, how it's developing, and hopefully what kind of measures we can take and where there are the hotspots. And it's even more important because at the moment accessibility is almost zero, and if you can look by satellite, you can do much more. Two problems. We often have difficulties with the acceptability with our clients. So something like the capacity building that Lisa mentioned is probably really important, and we should extend on that. And as shown also in the Sudan case, verification of the data, how can we get that better? And there's always a scale problem, of course. Is one field point better than a larger integrated point? We don't know that yet, but I think we really need to focus on that so we can have more reliance, more confidence in the satellite data. I would like to say much more, but this is more than enough. Thank you very much for giving me the chance.
Thank you very much, Jelle, and thank you very much, because I think you've also answered some of the additional questions that came recently. And that was very interesting in the chat, asking about what action is required for the satellite data to be used extensively. So pointing out, as you just did, to the possible improvement and where are the sticky point yet is really interesting and is answering that question. So thank you very much. I think we are now right on time to close our session. So I would like to thank everyone, all speakers and panelists. Obviously, Livia, who introduced the session, and for the other questions that are remaining, I invite also speaker and panelists who would like to answer some of the questions directly in the chat. The video recording of the session will be, as Livia already mentioned, available directly in the World Water Week website. So thank you all. for this session, and see you probably in other session of this World Water Week. Bye.
Thank you.